I'm so excited today to have Brunel here to speak about her books and her thoughts. She's a magnificent author. She's a fabulous podcaster as well. And she runs a Facebook group, which is how I met her. So, Brunel, please introduce yourself to the group and tell everybody a little bit about you, if you would.
Yeah. Hi, everybody. Yes, as Beth said, first, foremost, uh, I have a group on Facebook called Life is a Trip Reincarnation Stories, and it's got the stained glass kind of fun look on it. So you can see the tone is upbeat and fun. And the purpose of the group is to share reincarnation and past life and metaphysical stories, whether fictional or factual. So that's one of the things that separates our group from others is that we're about telling stories, and we believe that stories can really make a difference and change the world. And so, but it often sometimes fictional stories are more powerful than the so-called factual, because you can suspend disbelief and then just enjoy the story, but it opens up a mind into something. And it also helps keep us from being rigid within a structure, right? Like if this is the box, oh, it has to fit in this box. I'm like, no, I've got somebody writing a story about a ghost that is reincarnates and comes back as a ghost to keep playing a ghost. I mean, it's just like all, there, and so, and I say that when I say I have that. I've written a bunch of reincarnation stories myself. I've got two children's books on a similar topic, and a series of novels, of screenplays, all these kinds of things. And I just realized I want more of these stories out in the world, and so I want to celebrate these stories. And the group can be, somebody can go in there and say, I think I might have been this person in this lifetime, or I think my life purpose might be here, or what's happening with my guides, am I being helped, all these kinds of related questions. And also some of them are stories, like with a beginning, middle, and end. And so a couple of months ago we started the Life is a Trip podcast. And a lot of people know what the Modern Love podcast is. Some people don't. It's one of the biggest. It might be the biggest out there. I don't know. There's always, every day there's a competition, but it was started by the New York Times. And it's basically stories. And so ours is kind of like a metaphysical modern love, if you will, although it's not always love stories. And it's just a group of stories that different people have written. And some are writers that might write science fiction and have stories. And some might be, this is my true story, of what's happened in my life, and I've written it as a story. So I just find, it really empowering to have these kinds of stories out in the world. And we are on IMDb, so the writers get to have a IMDb credit. So if they have an ambition to be more, more of a writer, and it would give me such a thrill to have some of the writers that are on the podcast get noticed by Hollywood or, a publisher, and have their stories taken far and wide. I mean, that's the purpose. It's not like, oh, how much money we're going to make. It's just about sharing stories.
So
So
tell
it's
me, how
really
did
cool.
you get started in this interesting niche?
It's I wrote my first book, which was nonfiction, in 2006.
What was
And
the title of it?
it's called Five Reasons Why Bad Things Happen: How to Turn Tragedies into Triumph.
Mm-hmm.
So it really is. I was going through a really difficult time in my life. It's not a memoir or anything. This is really more of a self-help book. And but I was going through a really tough time. My business fell apart. I was losing my house. I was getting foreclosed, bankruptcy. I had a relationship end. My dog died. Like all of these things were happening
Good.
at once.
Oh, goodness.
And I was like, there's got to be a reason why. And so I was kind of in a meditative state one day, and all of a sudden I was like, oh, not only is there a reason, there are five reasons. And so I did a bunch of research, and all the world was crashing around me, and I was in bliss while I was writing it.
Mm.
It was really, really powerful. And so that kind of got me into it. Although that book isn't at all about reincarnation, it is about the fact that we have a soul. The soul chooses a body to become us. And what's that dynamic like? And how do we plan our lifetimes? To take an excerpt from one of my children's books, is like, we decide on our lessons, the paths we will take, awards we might go for, and mistakes we might make. For life isn't easy and not always fun, but easy is boring, like games always won.
Oh my
So
goodness, you're sounding like a little Seuss like there.
I
I
know,
love it.
it is kind of like, I love I think I really do believe in rhyming, especially for children's books.
Yeah.
And so that was the first thing. And then I thought, kind of tiptoed into writing fiction. And my first uh, novels I don't even what you call it, trilogy. What's a quadrilogy? I don't know.
Three or four
About
books in a row of related
yeah, it's a
theme.
love
Yes.
story about a couple, and then it goes back to their previous lifetimes, and it kind of explains what's happening in this lifetime and how it relates to how they lived in their previous lifetimes. And it
Mm.
was so much fun going back and going, okay, who are they? And who were they in a previous lifetime? And then who were they before that? And how does that all work together? So
So
that
when
was
you
really
look
fun.
at doing that kind of a thing, how do you go about doing your research?
That it was very interesting, especially for the first book was basically a love story, and so I had to learn enough about history to know that that particular couple has present day, has an Old West story, which I had a lot of fun writing,
Mhm.
and then has an Ottoman Empire in the 1600s, which was really interesting to research because I was attracted to the whole harem world
Mhm.
and learned so much about what that was like. And the women had a lot of power. We think of them as just being, concubines or something. In fact, you'll probably like this, and it's like this big of a spoiler, but um, I have like the sultan in this previous lifetime, and that wasn't such an easy life because they had dozens, maybe 100 wives that they had to please, and that's not so easy. And it's a lot of stress, really, on that lifetime. You think it's going to be like you have this perception that's going to be something different. So I wrote that Sultan in the current day life, kind of inspired by somebody I knew in real life who was um, kind of drank too much, nomadic, didn't really have a home, kind of a homeless guy, did odd jobs, like he chose this lifetime to be no responsibility, no one to answer to. Like, I'm going to live my life the way I want. And it was fun to kind of think that through. Like, if you had a lifetime like a sultan, what would you choose for your
What
next
would your
one?
next one be like? Speaking
Yeah,
of which, I know that reincarnation has been your love and your passion, and that's what sort of was undergirding the creation of the Facebook group, Life is
right.
a Trip. So, what, if you don't mind me asking, is your personal experience with regard to past lives or your belief system there?
Well, my belief system, it started really honestly with Shirley MacLaine and Out on a Limb. That was my first really like, okay, I'm seeing something I had not. I mean, of course, you'd heard about it in your life, but you think, no, that doesn't fit what I was brought up with. And you're like, wait a minute, there's something here. And I did have my very first past life memory was of starving to death in prison.
Yeah.
And so I mean, I could feel what was happening to my body as I was doing that, and so it was very, very interesting to get that feeling. And then it led to an awareness of that what I was I was about a 14-year-old boy in, I'm pretty sure it was Belgium, and it was somewhere in the 1800s, and there was some war going on. I haven't done the research to prove this. I probably should, but I kind of got the lesson I needed from it. And I was the all the men were off at a war, and I was sort of the oldest man, left at like 14 or something. And I thought I was hot stuff, and I got myself in trouble, and I got imprisoned and starved to death in prison. And what was
Was that a spontaneous one, or how did you get to having that experience?
it was through what I call a dreamery, a dream that's a memory.
Okay.
But what was interesting about that is that not long after I had those memories, I met somebody in this lifetime who had been my younger brother in that previous lifetime. And so the connection that he and I had, and how similar his lessons from that lifetime to this lifetime are, and how that affected our dynamic, and also led us to have a soul contract, which I'm sure you are big into. And
We
I
do know
had,
a lot about that. I mean, as hypnotherapists, do you want to sort of define that for the audience?
yeah, well, for me, I'll just tell you my experience because I'm a storyteller, so I'll tell it in terms of a story. Is that I was in this relationship with this man, And we just kept reconnecting every few years. And it was kind of like never really hitting the mark, but also like I would think about him and he would call. I mean, it could be that way. So there was such a connection. And then of course I started I mean, it lasted many years. I started remembering that, what it was and how we knew each other and what our past life was, and got clarity on that. And then, and I did go to a regressionist who kind of took me into that lifetime much more deeply. And I felt my body turn male, and I felt my body get skinny, from the starvation. And then I'm with the man, years later, and I'm with him, and he's actually at the first time like talking to me about a real commitment. And all of a sudden, I'm with him, and I get a message from upstairs. Mm-hmm. And it's like you and I talking. I mean, like except for it wasn't visual, but it was a message. And the message was, there's nothing more you can do for him. You are now released from your contract. Mm. And I'm like, what? Yeah. What's a contract?
Right. Right.
I mean, yes. I didn't really know what that was. And
I think that's spectacular. I mean, basically what you're saying is you've had these experiences, they've come in spontaneously, which does happen to a lot of people. You then went to a hypnotherapist who was able to really dig into that lifetime specifically. What were the lessons? What was literally the contract? And as Dolores Cannon and Michael Newton, some of the pioneers in hypnotherapy, have recognized, contracts are just what our life plans and our missions are. They're just what we set up for on the other side. We come into spirit, from spirit into incarnation to fulfill those, but we have free will. So sometimes exactly. It's a hit, sometimes it's a miss. That's awesome. That's really like that's beautiful.
It was like, okay, I need to start learning about this, because I did realize that, and I agree with you. I talk about it in my Reasons Why book about kind of how we plan. And I think it's like we set up a roadmap. Uh-huh. And so we know certain intersections, we know certain paths. And then when we get here, we can sit in an intersection our whole life, or we can take a right, or we can keep taking rights and go around in circles. Or we can take the high road or the low road. We can go off road. That's where the free will comes in. And yet with him, there was something that I had committed to that I needed to see through until I couldn't see through it anymore. Like I couldn't break from that pattern until I got that message.
You were apparently given like carte blanche. You've fulfilled whatever you need to. And that does happen. Some people want to know about their contracts and are they on the right path? Have they fulfilled them? And so that was great inspiration and message. I'd like to go to the one book that you actually have provided, and hopefully when I load this vodcast or podcast into Afterlife Explorer, that people will have the opportunity to take just that taste of your writing, because it's so delicious. You're an author who is incredibly descriptive and funny. I mean, I love the sense of humor that is placed in it. But I'd like to move to the book called The End. So I've read it. I love it. And I just really respect you for putting that out there among your many books that you've already done, and children's books and screenwriting and all those things that make up Brownell. So could you talk a little bit about The End?
I would be delighted to. And thank you for the compliment. I mean, I've actually had people tell me they think it could be a college course.
Right. Because there's so much packed into it. There's so many like, oh, what about this thread? And what about this dialogue? And who is Z? And oops, wait, I better not talk about it. You talk about it, Brownell.
Yeah, no, it was a very, very interesting experience. And I don't know how much of the lead into it you want me to get into, but a year ago, I'd been living in the same place, Aspen, Colorado. So it's not like a bad place, but I was kind of like in a rut. And all of a sudden my landlord wanted to raise the rent 50%. Yeah. And I was like, okay, that's not going to work. And so I started looking at moving to Italy, because I'm writing about Italy, which is my novels, which I'm sure you're going to ask me about, that are released. And by the way, on the end, yes, I want to make sure everybody gets to read it for free. It's 9,000 words, so it's a quick read, but it does have it's fun and funny and all that stuff, and yet there's a lot of depth. as you know, on it. So yes, I'd be delighted to do that. And on my novels, I wanted to offer the first book for 99 cents. And if you buy that, I'll give you any of my other books for free.
Oh,
So,
awesome.
because it's really, trying to get it out there, and you know how algorithms work and all that kind of stuff. So the more I can get it out there, the more, the more it's going to help getting these stories out there.
Yeah.
So anyway, I was like, I'm going to Italy. I'm going for a year. Oh no, they're not taking applications for visas. I'm like, okay, so I can only go 3 months. And so I'm like, well, where am I going to go after that? And I started looking at, I had to be outside of the European Union. And I could have gone to England, but why go there in the winter, right? That's not exactly the top place to go in the winter. So I actually looked at Tunisia, which is 92 miles from Sicily. Most people don't realize how close it is. And so that's how I made this plan. So I'm going on this trip. And then I talked to a friend of mine. She's like, and now this is the publishing world, but can I write something that I can give to readers so that they learn about me and my writing? And I'm writing this story, and it's from the perspective of what I call the upstairs. So it's like, if you were one of these guides, I call them traffic angels, and the guides, if you're up there and you're looking down at us going, she's off road, or I need to get her back on this track, that's the way I wanted to write it. And as I'm writing it, I'm like, this is real. Like I'm writing what's real. There really is a team up there, and they really are orchestrating all this. And they orchestrated the rent increase, and they orchestrated the no visa, and they were putting me into this particular trajectory that they wanted me to go down. And that's what I really hope that readers see and enjoy, because for me, I had been so driven to, like, I'm setting a goal and making this happen, and I kept running into roadblock after roadblock. And then when I was writing this story, I was like, oh, wait a minute, they're in charge. I need to let go. If they want me to go to Tunisia, I'm going to Tunisia because that's what they want. And it was just, and ever since then, all the things that have been planning, it's like, if I'm doing what they want me to do, they make me happy. I mean, they like infuse me with joy. And if I'm not, I feel like they're like border collies that are like knocking me down this way. I want to go this way, but no, we're gonna force you that
It
way.
does seem like the universe nudges us in a particular direction, doesn't it? I tend to call them my spirit team, which kind of sounds like high school glee club or something. I just figure they're out there cheerleading for me, and I appreciate the fact that, they're present in my life, and they really do, send us on a path. And that's why I love the book called The End, which is it the end or isn't it? Because it's a little bit of a story about reincarnation, partly semi autobiographical about you, Brownell, which gives us a little insight, little glimpses into your life, and how when the universe nudges us, we could take that higher perspective and not be so caught up in the oy vey spirit so bad. Like it's so
Yes.
oh,
Right. Because I felt like I was fighting with them, and I realized I needed to surrender to them. They had a better plan. And I look at this year and what I've been through, and now starting the podcast and releasing these books and all of these things happening. And I'll tease and say it's a love story.
and it is a love story. It's a
Yeah,
little hot and a few firecrackers in there.
yeah, and
Fireworks.
I
Woo,
won't tell
baby.
you how much of that part is true or not, but but
Okay.
it but I will say that it's there is a hint in my mind of a sequel, and
Nice.
I will give only your listeners this tease, in that the because there is an ending, right? It's the end.
In the end, there is an
And,
ending for this
and yet
particular
I think,
9,000 words. Yes.
right, right, and people are like, there's got to be more to this story. And so I'm going to, what's in my vision right now is to write that the team upstairs goes to visit the time being has control over how we manage time and how things work within time. So
Right.
I'm going to have some fun with that. And you're like, what do they want, and what are they thinking? And it's just been fantastic. Even when you go through tough and heartbreak and things like that, you stoke, okay, they're still there. They're still, they've got a plan. And the more I can connect with them and understand what they want, the more I'm going to be in alignment with my own joy, which is
Like
really
that.
great.
I think that it presents such a great way. Okay, you got to define traffic angels while you're there. Like
Yeah.
now that we're talking about the end, that story that you've written, a little bit, just like a cliff note on. So what's this traffic angel thing?
Yeah, I came up with that concept because I've like if you've got an American woman in Aspen, Colorado, and a British man, and you want them to meet in Tunisia, like that's some logistics,
Yeah, yeah,
right? They have to give the rent increase, and they have to make this thing, and then also can't get a visa, and then why Tunisia? And even years ago, I went to a talk on Tunisia. So I have a fan of my first novels that lives in Tunisia. So I was like, let me look at Tunisia. And then I found this beautiful resort, by the way. Anybody wants to come, I'm going to go back. $1,000 a month, including 2 meals a day on the Mediterranean with the sunrise out from my window every day. Like it was really a great retreat place for me. And of course the setting of the story, if you will. But yeah, how the traffic angels had what they had to do. I mean, and I'm sure you've got experiences in your life where you're like, how did this and these things come together that could never have come together if you had thought it through and said, I want to go do this,
yeah, yeah. So the traffic angels are those beings of light who assist us in crossing paths with those that we need to cross paths with.
That's right. If we've got our roadmap and they've got their roadmap, how do you integrate those roadmaps
And
when you've
get
got
them all in
free will
place
fighting
at the
against
same
it, right?
time. Exactly that. Right,
Yeah,
right. Nice.
yeah.
Well, that's
So
awesome. Nicely done. So what else would you like to tell the group about the stories that you've written, the stories that are coming up, like whatever else you'd like to have folks?
well, thanks. Yeah. Well, I'm launching September 17th. I'm launching my trilogy. So I don't know when they're going to listen to this, whether it's September 17th, 2024 or September 20,
It'll be
17th,
soon. It'll be
2029.
soon.
Well, I
Yeah,
mean, they could be years from now, though, that somebody could come back and listen.
of course.
Um, and it's about a famous couple in history. And now that I mentioned Italy, that might give you a little bit of a teaser. And it's about a famous couple that I'm sure most people have heard of to some degree, reincarnated today to fulfill a prophecy that will change the world.
Oh, and there's a secret society in that one, right?
And there's a secret society in that. And it goes, the story actually does, I even trace as far back as Pythagoras. So that was so much fun. You're talking about research. That was so much fun doing the research on that because it starts out with the couple in present day, and his first words to her are, "We meet again." And she's like, "But we've never met, but have they?" Right? And so that's kind of the tie. And then they have a past life in 1930s Brazil where they're a priest and a nun. And then they have a previous lifetime in the Renaissance in the 1500s. And that was really, really interesting to research. And I actually have my couple meet Shakespeare and hang out with Giordano Bruno. I don't know if you know much about Giordano Bruno.
John D, right?
And John Dee, yes,
John D. Okay.
yes.
All right. Yeah.
Yeah, and Giordano Bruno is like my ultimate hero. He was burned for heresy because he said the universe is infinite and the earth goes around the sun. Right. So he was just an amazing, amazing person. And then it goes back to a previous lifetime during the Black Plague,
Hmm.
and then a previous one before that. So I won't give them too much away, but it was so much fun writing the same characters in these lifetimes, but also threading it through that secret society and the mission of the secret society, and how like now they've got some pressure to see can they meet the mission, because this might be the last lifetime they have to try to see if they can change the world. So, and then you got modern day stuff you have to deal with, right? And there's nefarious organizations that want to own the information and all this stuff. So it's fun doing a lot of the research and just loving this couple and all of their dynamic and writing all that. So I'm really excited about. And I even showed it to somebody. And that kind of is adjacent to Hollywood. And they're like, that could be a TV series. I was like, yeah, I know.
That could. Oh my
you
God.
know,
I hope Hollywood's listening.
Yes, yeah, exactly. Well, I've started structuring it just so it could be instantly adaptable. So we'll see.
Perfect.
Again, it's about getting these stories out there.
And speaking of which, so you did make this special offer, as I recall. Could you like just clarify that? I'll put it in the notes for the
Yeah.
uploads, but still, if you could like just speak it about that 99 cent offer.
Yeah. I want to make sure that everybody knows the offer is that I'm launching September 17th. So between now and September 17th, and well, I say now, I'm going to upload it tomorrow. So I got to give me a day, but it'll take you a day to get this launched. For 99 cents, the first book in the series, and also, if you do that and you message me, I will give you a link to any of my other books, and any book. So that could be the Reasons Why book. It could be a book in my other trilogy. It could be any of the other stories
Even
because
the
it's
children's books that relate to reincarnation, which like that's probably a niche that not many authors have tackled. So nice.
right. One of them is called Sometimes I Wonder. That's the one I was just quoting. And it says, Sometimes I wonder if this isn't home. And I don't mean Paris or London or Rome. I'm talking about another other place before this time and outside this space. So that was sort of about the afterlife and purpose of life and how we plan our lives. And then the other one is called This Isn't My First Time. And it's like, this isn't my first time of that, I'm sure. I've taken this road and taken this tour. So it's really, really fun. So yeah, so I mean and I've got several other books out there too. So there's all kinds of stuff that and again, I want it's not like, oh, I want to make the 99 cents. It's that I have to do it for 99 cents to get the algorithms, and I want to be able to get as many of these stories out there. And I also want to just say, anybody listening that has a reincarnation story that wants to write one for the podcast, please check out the podcast. And I know we're going to pretty soon get inundated with stories that people want to put up there. But the more we can get it out there, the more all of us benefit. The whole world benefits.
That's it. And really, isn't that kind of part of our all global mission to sort of lift up this planet Earth and the folks who are out there who just don't know that there's so much more to our being than just what we see and just this physical body, emotional body that we recognize. We're all
Exactly.
spirit, and there's really great news from the universe as it nudges us along towards soul growth, which is sometimes a little painful, but it's why we're
Yeah.
here. Well, thank you,
But
Brenna.
if we're in alignment with what they want, then it's not as we can learn to not have it be as painful.
That's right. It's clear sailing ahead. Yes, well, God willing. Anyway, thank you, Brunel. You're awesome. I so
Thank you. I enjoyed it so much.
okay.